All right, it looks like we are live. So let's just make sure that I'm going to check, get my screens all sorted out, make sure we're coming through. Abby, I'm just going to check over on your Facebook page to make sure that this live is coming through.
Perfect.
Let me refresh. If you're joining us yet, if we got anybody on, we're just getting everything sorted out real quick, making sure all the tech's working fine. So thanks for sticking with us. There we go. All right.
Awesome.
All right, 1 second here while we get sorted. Thanks for being patient. All right, I think we're live.
Awesome.
So welcome everyone. Welcome to today's topic on intermittent fasting. I'm your host, Grayson Carter, founder of Nutritionist Near Me. We're a local site that helps connect health conscious people with local dietitians and nutritionists. And we're joined today with a very special guest, Abby Stanley. So welcome, Abby. How you doing today?
Hey, I'm good, Grayson. How are you?
Doing awesome. Good to have you here.
Thank you.
We'll go ahead and pause for just a sec. If we got anybody signing on, if you can hear our voices and see our screen, if you could type something in the comments just to let us know that we're coming through loud and clear, that'd be great. I see Nancy. Welcome, Nancy. I see Jenny. Welcome, Jenny. So it sounds like we're coming through. So I think we're good to go on the tech side. Thanks for being here, guys. If I could do one thing. If this is a topic that resonates with you, or if you hear something that you have friends or family that need to hear, I'd encourage you to tag them in this post. The more people that we can reach, the more people that we can help. So if you know people that need to hear what we're talking about today, I encourage you to tag them. Make sure they hear this message, and we're going to do all we can to get them any sort of help they need. So with that, let's just go ahead and hop into it. So Abby, I'm so happy you're here today. I think this is going to be a really interesting topic that's definitely on the forefront of a lot of people's minds. So to start us off, why don't you just give us a sense of who you are and what you do in your practice?
Yeah, awesome. So obviously I'm Abby. I'm a dietitian and I own Revive Nutrition Solutions. So really what I'm focused on in my practice is
Oh, I think I lost you there for a sec. Oh, are we back, Abby?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Sorry, we must have had a little internet hiccup. We lost you right before what I do in my practice is.
Perfect. That's good. Yeah. So what I really focus on is helping women who have really just battled with years of yo-yo dieting. So they're on a diet, off a diet. They've seen their weight just fluctuate up and down about 20 pounds or more. And they're just kind of sick of seeing that number just go back and forth and not really understanding why they can't just find like one weight that they feel great at, they're healthy at, and just stay there. So really help them get to the bottom of what is contributing to that weight loss and weight gain and that back and forth, and just find that kind of, I call it like your forever weight. So that's really what I focus with and who I help.
That's awesome. That's a great, that sounds like a lot of people need that sort of help. So thank you for all the work that you do.
Thanks.
We're going to go ahead and dive into some questions today. We had some people write in ahead of time. Some questions. If you're on this and watching it, feel free to type in questions that you have as they come up. We're going to try to get to as many questions as we can and do some Q&A at the end. So feel free to just type in the questions as they come, and we'll try to get through as many as we can at the end. So Abby, to start us off, talking about intermittent fasting, first of all, what is it, and why would somebody want to do it? Why is it such a hot topic right now?
Great question. So first of all, what are we talking about when we're talking about intermittent fasting? It is pretty defined. So intermittent fasting is defined to any fasting period that lasts 2 days or less. So you get into a window over 2 days and you're looking at long-term fasting. So intermittent is very key here. It's shorter duration. As far as like why would someone be interested in this, I think there's a lot of different reasons for that. So, it might be that they got a diagnosis of Alzheimer's or diabetes, cancer. Maybe they're just looking to improve their gut health, or they're struggling with another inflammatory condition. A lot of times that can lead people down the intermittent fasting rabbit hole. But I think one of the most popular ones that I'm hearing right now from people is just people are turning to it for weight loss. So those are just kind of a variety of the reasons someone might be intrigued by it or might be considering trying it.
Got it. So if people are, so you mentioned weight loss, people are turning to it for weight loss. Is that like an effective strategy, or is there like, what should people be considering when if they're thinking about doing intermittent fasting for weight loss?
Yeah. So that's a great question. And so it can be an effective strategy. So can being the key word there, not always an effective strategy. So one of the ways that really I'm most interested in my practice and helping women kind of find that forever weight with how intermittent fasting can aid in weight loss is the impact that it has on our metabolism. So it's not a direct impact, it is indirect, but the studies do show that through practicing intermittent fasting, we lower our levels of insulin, which is basically just our kind of fat storing hormone. So we're decreasing that level of that hormone and kind of basically telling our body to burn stored energy, to burn that fat and use that. So there's also a couple other mechanisms by which intermittent fasting can kind of send that signal to our body that let's break down that stored fat, let's use this for energy. So it does show promise there in its ability to kind of help our metabolism indirectly that way and maybe aid in weight loss.
Got it. So if it's helping you lower insulin, is there kind of a flip side to that? Is there something that's happening that maybe people aren't considering that maybe isn't as beneficial, or may actually be a detriment to to what they're trying to accomplish?
As far as like with intermittent fasting, like what? Yeah, there is. And specifically, I think when we're talking about applying this method or tactic to women specifically. So we just have to be careful that you're ready and primed to actually reap benefits from a fasting practice. So basically what I mean by that is our bodies have to be in a place where we're healthy, we're nourished, we're not under a lot of stress, we're getting adequate sleep. We have to kind of be in that place and then prime our body to really accept those signals of like, okay, we are going to get into our fat stores and we are going to burn that as energy to really then reap the benefits of it. So yes, there are those benefits on the metabolism and the impact there, but only if we're prepared for it, our body's prepared for it, and if it's appropriate for us at that time based on what else we're trying to achieve with our health at that period of time.
Got it. So it sounds like from that, it sounds like there can be a lot of benefits to it, but also if we don't do it properly, or there's maybe things that we haven't addressed first, that a fast or intermittent fasting may actually make our conditions worse, or actually work counter to what we're trying to accomplish, is what I'm hearing you say.
100%. Mm-hmm.
Got it. So there's lots of fasting plans out there. I know people talk about the different time periods and how long is a fast, and there's opinions around that. So where do you stand on that? Like, how long, if somebody decides, yes, this is something that that is right for me, what should they be considering?
Yes, great question. So first, if you are kind of at this moment of like, yes, this is something that I want to do, I think it's important to kind of recognize that there are a variety of plans out there, and there's so many kind of different people telling you different ways to do it. And it's about finding what's like right for you. So just kind of to just like quickly review some of those most common ones that people might hear. There's the alternate day fast, which is exactly what it sounds like. You have a normal eating pattern and then every other day you fast or restrict your calories. Whole day fasting, which is just a 24-hour period of fasting 1 to 2 times per week. the 5-2 fast, which basically this just means that you're eating normally for 5 days and then 2 days a week you're fasting, and you could separate those if you wanted to so they don't have to be back to back. And then there's the time restricted fasting, or like you might popularly hear this known as like the 16-8 fast. And basically this is just restricting your eating to a certain time period and then fasting for a certain time period. And so I think what's important about that one, and I'll talk a little bit about this because this is my favorite and this is what I would typically recommend in practice, is that the research shows that anywhere between 12 and 16 hours of a fasting state there is effective. And for women specifically, that 12 hours is adequate. Meaning that if we're hitting that 12-hour fasting window, we're getting some of that benefit from that practice. And that's typically what I'm going to recommend to most women if I recommend it in my practice, because it doesn't require a huge change. A lot of us are either already doing it just naturally and we're not even realizing that we're doing it, or it's only going to require shifting our dinner up or pushing our breakfast back a little bit to get that 12-hour window. So we don't have to drastically change what we're doing, how we're eating, the amount of food that we're eating, and it tends to fit the best in people's lifestyles. So that's really kind of what I recommend, or definitely a starting place before you move on to any other type of fasting windows.
Got it. No, that makes a lot of sense. So what do you think, like, what are some of the biggest mistakes that people make when it comes to implementing this?
That's a really good question. And I feel like I see this a lot. But I feel like the biggest mistake people make is that they see an article, watch a video, whatever, and they're like, okay, this sounds like something I want to do. And they just decide like they're going to do it. And they jump into it the next day or later on in that week. And fasting requires preparation. And if we don't do that preparation, we're just not getting the benefits from that fasting, as we kind of talked before. So that jumping into it and not actually changing like what you're eating and how you're eating on your normal eating days, and during that kind of feeding window, if you're not addressing that first to kind of set yourself up to already be primed to burn the stored energy, you're really just not helping your body. And what you're really doing in the short term is you're just going to feel like crap, right? Because you just went from eating how you normally do to, oh, today I'm just not going to eat anything and I'm going to fast. And you're just going to be moody. You're going to have headaches. You may have low energy and you're just going to kind of feel like crap overall. And then long term, what that could do is it's just creating an additional stressor on your body. So just to kind of summarize that, like the biggest mistake is like not actually preparing their bodies for going into a fasting state.
Got it. I can certainly relate to that. I feel like you're almost talking to me. I remember at one point when intermittent fasting was, somebody mentioned it and they were raving about the benefits. And I remember thinking, oh, I'm going to skip breakfast today. And by like 11, I was just like a hangry individual. Good thing no one was around. But I was thinking there's no way I could do this. Like it was awful. So I certainly can see how implementing it correctly is a critical piece of it, so that you can avoid all that. I'm sure my blood sugar was bombing out and all sorts. I was just doing it totally wrong without any sort of guidance. So I could certainly relate to what you're saying.
Yes, I think we've all been there, even me. So yeah, definitely.
Got it. So I think I kind of know where this is going. Just since you were saying, people, unless your body's primed for it, you shouldn't, it may not be the right thing. So who should and who shouldn't be considering intermittent fasting?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So let's start with who should actually be considering it. So if you have a medical condition, and the research shows that it may be improved by intermittent fasting, so some of those things I listed in the beginning, that might be a time to really consider doing it. So that's someone that I think would fall in that category. Men tend to do better with intermittent fasting and reap the benefits a bit more based on the research that I've seen so far. So, I don't usually hesitate to recommend it in men, but with women, I'm a little bit more cautious. And then someone that is like actually working with a dietitian and they've determined that it's an appropriate thing to do. So I think that's really the biggest qualifier, is that you're working with a healthcare professional. They've looked at your health history, nutrition history. They looked at where you are right now currently, and they decided like, yes, this is a safe and appropriate thing for you to do now. But I think with all of these things that I listed as far as who should consider it, it's all about only doing it if your body's fully nourished. So you're at this healthy place with your body, and your stress is low and managed, and your sleep is good. So there's kind of like this foundation of stuff that we need in place really before anyone starts to consider doing that next step. So that's the people that I think, definitely should consider it. As far as those that may want to be a little bit cautious or might not want to do it. So anyone with a history of restrictive dieting. So, I mean, if you've been dieting, decreasing calories for a long period of time, you probably have a lot of nutrient deficiencies and other things going on in the body just aren't working properly. So you would not want to jump into intermittent fasting. At-risk populations, so if you're pregnant, children, people like that probably shouldn't be practicing intermittent fasting. If you're a woman and you're struggling with infertility, this may not be the time for you to start intermittent fasting. Now, if you're working with someone and they've deemed it appropriate, that's fine. But also women that are under the recommended body weight or may have a loss of menstrual cycle, definitely would not recommend it. And then if you are like currently experiencing symptoms related to any sort of medical condition and you haven't already addressed those things through nutrition and lifestyle, so you haven't done that groundwork, then you should not just be jumping into this, because you're likely not going to get the benefits, and it's going to be one of those times where it's more harmful than helpful.
That's interesting. I'd be curious if you agree with this. I remember hearing a naturopath talk at one point about fertility and saying how, kind of from an evolutionary perspective, that when we calorie restrict, it's like we're tricking our bodies into thinking we're in a time of famine. Mm-hmm. And so our bodies are actually protecting itself from getting pregnant because there's not enough food to go around. And so all these, a lot of fertility problems have come down to this sort of calorie restriction and forcing our bodies into that sort of famine mindset. I don't know. Is there any sort of validity to that?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Obviously, there's a lot of different factors that can impact fertility, but I definitely see it in practice where women with a strong history of dieting and restricting calories do struggle with infertility because for a lot of reasons, but it impacts our nutrient status, and we need adequate nutrients to be able to carry a healthy pregnancy. It impacts our hormones. So thyroid hormones, sex hormones, all those hormones that are involved with conceiving and then maintaining that pregnancy. So definitely there's validity to that. Got it.
So I just want to pause for a second. I appreciate people hopping on. If you're coming on now and this is a topic that somebody that needs to be hearing this, or maybe they've tried fasting themselves, and you think this would be helpful, I encourage you to tag them in this post. The more people that we can reach, the more people that we can help. And so we appreciate you helping spread the word to people that may need to hear it. So go ahead and tag those people if you know somebody, and keep typing your questions in the comments if you want us to address them at the end. We're just going to keep rolling here with some of our questions, and then we'll hop into Q&A here at the end. See a few more people hopping on. Hey, Shafali. Hey, Chris. Welcome. Good to have you guys here. All right. So, Abby, if somebody wanted to, try intermittent fasting, what would be some of the things that they needed to make sure that they were successful?
Very good question. So I think if it's something that you're considering, the first thing is you want to kind of make sure that your body is already in a fat adaptive state. And basically what I just mean by that is that your body is used to burning stored energy. Stored fat for energy. So we want to be in that position where we can utilize that as an energy.
Oh, I think we lost you for just a sec. Let's see if you can hear me. The internet may be...
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
There we go. Now we're back.
Okay. Perfect. Awesome.
So sorry, I think we left off at make sure your body's in was it fat adaptive state? Was that the term?
Perfect. Yeah. And so essentially what I mean by that is we just want to make sure that your body is used to using that as fat as a fuel source, so that we're able to kind of utilize that to give us energy throughout the day. And so just kind of as a baseline, where I would start with that is really considering kind of maybe like a lower carb, high fat eating pattern, and really getting most of that food from real whole foods, making sure you're having a balance of proteins, healthy fats, and then carbs coming mostly from vegetables at your mealtime. And that'll kind of already put you on a trajectory to a lower carb, higher fat eating pattern. You can always take it a step further, and you could look at doing more of like a ketogenic diet, just to kind of help train your body to use that as a fuel source. So that's kind of like baseline number one. To be successful, you have to make sure that you're eating quality foods, nutrient-dense foods, balancing your macronutrients so that you're getting that fat as a source in your food, and want to make sure that you're kind of able to use that fat as a fuel source. So next, I think it's just key to start with that 12-hour fast 1 day a week. So we're not trying to win the Olympics here in the beginning. We're just trying to like see how it feels, see how our body does on it. If you're able to do that 12-hour fast 1 day per week for 2 weeks, then you can start increasing maybe towards that 16-hour window. But don't move on beyond that unless you've mastered that 16-hour window fast. So that's kind of our checkpoint to kind of decide like, hey, is this good for me? Is it not? And if you feel great and you're reaping the benefits and then you want to move on, sure, go ahead. But if you don't, if you feel crappy and you're like, this isn't working, I'm hungry, then A, you might want to work with a professional to make sure you're doing everything right. But B, it might not be for you. And that's okay. Intermittent fasting is not for everyone. But once you kind of hit that 16-hour fasting window, if you want to move on, you can. One key is also to be successful is to make sure that it's supported. So fasting doesn't mean, I'm just not eating all day and not drinking anything. We want to make sure that you're drinking water, herbal teas, any other decaf kind of liquids would be great too. Electrolytes are super important. So a lot of times what I'll tell people to do is you want to drink a lot of water, but we want to make sure that's balanced with electrolytes. So a little bit of lemon and salt in your water throughout the day can help with that. Or like an electrolyte supplement mixed in water could also help. You could even drink things like bone broth on a supported fast. And that fasting doesn't always mean not eating. So sometimes it does mean eating just smaller amounts. So you can utilize that as well. So I think just kind of the other quick tips to be successful, maybe just make sure you're scheduling it at a time where there's not a lot required from you. So a down weekend where you don't have a lot going on, that's probably the best time to first try it. Don't overcommit yourself. Don't work out those first few fasts. Like, don't think like, oh, and now I need to go go on a walk or run or whatever. Like really, we're just resting, resetting, kind of tuning into our body and see how it responds those first couple of times before we move on to anything else more intense.
Got it. So it sounds like you're kind of casting a warning that like, don't go out of the gate too hot. That if we try to go in and hey, I'm going to fast for the next 5 days, like we're probably going to crash and burn is what I'm hearing.
Yes, exactly. And really the goal is to find the shortest amount of fast that we get benefits from, not to find the longest fast that we can tolerate. Like that's not the goal. It's just figure out what's the shortest duration I have to do this or enjoy doing this to get those benefits.
Got it. So I know that you work on a lot of this stuff in your practice, and I know you have a program that may incorporate this if it's right for particular clients. How does this balance in your practice with the other things you do? And just say more about that.
Yeah. So I do use it in my program some. So the program you're talking about is the One Weight, One Wardrobe program. And it's really highly individualized. So I don't recommend intermittent fasting to every woman that comes through the program. And in fact, it's often one of the last tools that I use with someone because when they're coming to me, they are coming off of these years of restrictive dieting. And so we have to do a lot of groundwork just to get their body in a healthy place where it would be prepared to handle something like that. So it's something that we use when needed. And if it's something that they're interested in, like we definitely will look at that for them and make that decision together, and then make sure they do it in a safe manner. So it's one of those tools in my tool belt that we would use if needed and if indicated, and if someone's interested in trying it out. But we use a lot of other tools as well to help people kind of get to that place where they find that forever weight, and really just kind of find that peace and happiness with how they feel and look, and kind of stay there.
Got it. Do you mind elaborating on that? If if intermittent fasting is maybe one of the last tools you use, like what would some of the other things be that that you're putting in place that maybe a lot of people are just missing out on, that maybe a benefit to them?
Yeah, totally. So where we're going to start is with the foundational stuff, right? Making sure that we're taking in nutrient-dense foods, making sure we're balancing macronutrients. The things that I'm really looking to improve that need to be improved before maybe we jump to intermittent fasting, nutrient status. So we want to make sure that there's no nutrient deficiencies or insufficiencies, that you're getting everything that you need to in the right amounts. We look at inflammation. Is there inflammation going on? If there is, how can we address that through the food that you're eating and your lifestyle? We'll look at, your immune system and how that's functioning. That goes hand in hand with your gut health and what's going on in that GI environment. We also take a look at things like stress and sleep and toxin load, and even down to like each person as an individual, like your biochemical individuality. What do you need more of? What do you need less of? And then also just looking at hormones and how that impacts metabolism, and how you're utilizing the food that you take in. Like, are you actually using that properly? So those are kind of where we start. And then intermittent fasting can be a part of some of that stuff, but we want to make sure those foundational things are in place first.
Got it. It makes a lot of sense just talking about the individualization. It's something I didn't really consider until I got married. I was living with my wife, full time. She cooks every day, and so we're eating a lot of the same things. But it's interesting how things affect us totally differently. If we eat the same way, I may be starving and losing weight, and she may be, worried that she's going to be gaining weight. And so I can totally see how that the individualization is something that gets overlooked in a lot of programs, or a lot of just kind of the fad diets that are out there.
Totally. Yep. And I mean, it's all about individualization. We're all unique and different. We're all dealing with different things as far as it comes to our health and our lifestyles. So it makes sense that there's no one thing out there that is literally going to work for everyone. There might be pieces that we can pull that work for us. And it's good to have someone on your team to kind of help figure out what those things are. But yeah, you're spot on.
Got it. So if somebody was interested in working with you, what would how should they reach out, or what would that look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I feel like if this is something that's piqued your interest, and if you're interested in learning more, especially about those things that I just talked about, some of those foundational things that we need to get in place, maybe before jumping into intermittent fasting, I've actually put together a training, and it just kind of covers the 6 key areas that women specifically really need to address to kind of help them find that forever weight. So you can just go sign up for that training at revivenutritionsolutions.com/live. So that's, and I can drop that in the comments. But there you can register for that training. You can learn a little bit more. And that way you'll also get notified whenever we do open up enrollment for the One Weight, One Wardrobe program. We only do that a couple of times a year. But if that's something you're interested in learning more about, or being able to sign up when that does happen, that's probably the best next step for you to take. So yeah.
Awesome. So we'll get that. We'll post that link in the comments so people can go check that out. And again, Abby, thanks for everything you do. I know there's so many women that you've helped that, there's so many more out there that need this sort of work. So just thanks for doing what you do.
Thank you.
Have a few, let's see, we've got a few questions, I think.
Okay.
Let's see. Jenny asked, do BCAAs, do branched chain amino acids break a fast?
Good question. So there's differing opinions out there on that in the fasting world. And research is, I don't think 100% clear there, but a lot of people will just do a little bit of branched chain amino acids, say in like a coffee or a drink in the morning, and tend to do fine with that. So I think it's truly all about what's working for you. And if you have that in the morning and it makes you feel better when you're fasting, if that's part of your supported fast, that would be okay. So going back to this idea of having a supported fast, like we can be consuming some things while we're fasting. We really want to kind of maybe steer towards more like proteins and healthy fats, but a little bit of branched chain amino acids should be okay.
Perfect. So that might be all the questions that we have. I'll go ahead and just pause for a second. If you guys have anything else, if you're watching this and have questions for Abby, feel free to type them in the comments and we will hop on. If we don't get any more in the next 20 seconds or so, we may go ahead and wrap things up.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks for joining, everyone. It was nice to have you guys here.
Yeah, I think this is a topic that's definitely got a lot of popularity. I feel like I hear these terms being thrown around a lot. So it's nice to have some clarity and just to know that it's not a one size fits all. I can't, how I implement it is going to be different than how my wife implements it, from how my mom implements it. It's, and so having somebody like yourself to be able to customize it, or maybe even say, hey, this is actually the worst thing you could be doing for yourself right now is really valuable. Yeah, definitely. I think just having that person on your team that can kind of see things from maybe more of an objective perspective, not this is just something I want to try, but let's look at the whole picture of what's going on right now, can be super helpful. Got it. Yeah, having that not being so like zoomed in on one little thing and getting that bigger perspective is always super helpful. Yeah. So let me just check real quick and see if we got anybody else. Thanks, Ashley. Thanks, Rich, for being on here. I don't think we have any more questions. Anything else before we wrap up, Abby? Let's see. I feel like we covered most of everything that I think is important. I think maybe just kind of like my last advice, especially to women that are considering doing intermittent fasting, is just, proceed with caution. We may get benefits from it, but we need to make sure it's the right time. And that just remembering that even that 12-hour fasting window is adequate for women to get those benefits. So it really doesn't require that much of a change in what you're currently doing to start implementing this in your life if you choose to do that. Got it. Awesome. Well, before we wrap, what's the URL one more time? I know we'll post it in the comments, but if people want to check out that training and learn more about how you work and what you do, where can they go? Yep. So you can just go to revivenutritionsolutions.com/live. And I'll drop that in the comments as well. But yeah, I'd love to have you on that training, just get a little bit deeper into some of these topics. Yeah, be awesome. Sounds good, Abby. Well, thanks so much for being here. I appreciate all the comments and people joining us. If you like this, let us know. We'll do more of them. But that is it. So Abby, thanks so much for being here. And you guys have a great rest of your day. Awesome. Thank you for having me, Grayson. All right. Of course. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.